Good morning, County Council. I'd like to call to order this meeting of July 9th, 2026. At this time, as you are able, please join us for the singing and standing for O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please conduct our roll call?
Councillor Mackey,
Present.
Councillor McKay, Councillor Carlton, Councillor Pringle, Councillor McQueen, Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Dickert, Councillor Kentner, Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Body, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Milne, Councillor Dobreen, Warden Matrosovs, Councillor Bourdignon,
Here.
Councillor Eccles, Councillor Hutchinson. We have all members in attendance today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let us begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg Nation, the people of the Three Fires, known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. And further, we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, traditional keepers of these lands and waters since time immemorial. In our south lies the traditional territories of the Six Nations of the Grand River, Haudenosaunee. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, friendship, and collaboration with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. At this point in time, we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. And for item 5A, it's recommended that the minutes of the County Council meeting and the Committee of the Whole meeting dated June 25th, 2026, and the resolutions contained therein be adopted as presented. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Got it moved by Councillor McKay, seconded by Councillor Dobreen. Any discussion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'd like to pull resolution. This is the final resolution with regards to the transfer of the urban and rural road agreement, please, for separate vote.
Okay, thank you. So there is, Madam Clerk, you require a seconder for that as well. So it is moved by Councillor McQueen to pull the resolution CW 9926 from the Committee of the Whole meeting dated June 25th, 2026 to be removed and voted on separately. Is there a seconder? I'll do a final call. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nielsen. So it's been seconded. It's on the floor. So Madam Clerk, this is just a request to vote separately. Do I call for discussion on this about voting on it separately? Okay, so it would be open for discussion at this point in time. Okay, Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and good morning, County Council. I just want to raise that I think Randy sent out, our CEO sent out an updated spreadsheet and costing of that. I don't know if he wishes to speak to that. I know that this at our last Committee of the Whole meeting, there was an amendment changed with some changes. And I made that request yesterday to have that update it, which I appreciate for that, Randy, for doing that. And I saw this morning you said it out to all county council. I don't know if you have anything to say to that, or any highlights you wish, because just to refresh your county council last meeting, there was an amendment to the main motion with those changes, but we didn't have that information available with those changes.
Okay, I just need to interject on process. Madam Clerk, can I just look to you to clarify what it is that we need to discuss at this point in time versus what we do next?
Thank you. So there's the motion on the floor to pull the resolution from the last meeting and vote on it separately. So that's the motion on the floor at this time. It is debatable, but following council's vote on that, if it's successful, then you can move to discussion on the actual road resolution.
Okay, so Councillor McLean, I'll hold on to your request for the CAO to provide further information as we progress through this process. So at this point in time, as I mentioned, the discussion for this is to discuss whether or not to remove it and vote on it separately. Any discussion on that? Okay, so for this then, this item is not being recorded. This is the motion we will vote on to decide if we are going to remove it and vote separately on the actual item content. So this vote at this point in time that I'll call for is whether or not to remove it and vote separately. So with that, I will ask for all those in favor. Okay, those opposed? Okay, so that motion fails. So Madam Clerk? Okay, there's a request for a recorded vote on whether or not the item should be removed and voted separately.
Councillor Mackey,
Opposed?
opposed, Councillor McKay. Opposed, Councillor Carlton. Opposed, Councillor Pringle. Opposed, Councillor McQueen. In favor, Councillor Nielsen. In favor, Councillor Patterson. Opposed, Councillor Dickert. Opposed, Councillor Kentner. Opposed, Councillor Keaveney. Opposed, Councillor Body. Opposed, Councillor Gregg. Opposed, Councillor Milne. Opposed, Councillor DeBreen. Opposed, Warden Matrosovs. Opposed, Councillor Bordignon.
Opposed.
Opposed, Councillor Eccles. Opposed, Councillor Hutchinson. Opposed, that motion is lost. 85-11.
Okay, so thank you very much for that participation. So now that we are back to the original motion that has been moved and seconded, that the minutes of the county council meeting and the committee of the whole meeting dated June 25th, 2026, and the resolutions contained therein be adopted as presented. This would be an appropriate moment for me to allow the floor to the CAO, who can follow up on the reference to the additional information.
Thank you, Warden, through you. We did receive requests from municipal staff last week to see if there's an updated financial spreadsheet incorporating some of the modifications that were approved or passed by committee of the whole on June 25th. Financial staff were able to update that financial spreadsheet. We received a request as noted by Councillor McQueen yesterday if there was an updated financial spreadsheet. And so we shared that with county council, and Tara shared that with county council this morning, so that all members have that. So all municipal staff, as well as now county council members, have the updated financial spreadsheet that incorporates the modifications that were made as part of the operational considerations, which was the changes that were made as part of that, as well as the transitional funding and the 5% guaranteed portion of that funding model. So those are the two elements that were incorporated as part of that. It's important that you read the notes on page 2 as well as the table, because that tells the full story of what's in that document. But again, subject to the minutes being approved, we'll be bringing forward road transfer bylaws for council's consideration. That's planned to be at the next meeting. And then we'll work with obviously the municipal staff to be able to finalize those MOUs and work towards all the transition plans between now and June 1st of 2027.
Okay, thank you very much. Helpful extra information for both municipal staff as well as our county council. So with this, is there any further discussion on the minutes that we are looking to approve as presented? To adopt as presented? No, seeing none. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, so that allows us to move to item 5B. It's recommended that the closed session committee of the whole meeting minutes dated June 11th and June 25th be adopted as provided. May I ask for a motion? Thank you. Councillor Eccles, seconded by the deputy warden. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. We do not have any closed meeting matters on this agenda, and we will nor reports. That allows us to move to our bylaws. It's recommended that bylaws 528726 and 528926 be introduced and taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the warden and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed into the bylaw book. There are 3. The first one is a bylaw to appoint the acting treasurer for the County of Grey. The second is a bylaw to adopt the amendment number 30 to the County of Grey official plan affecting lands described as Part Lot 13, Concession 14 West in the geographic township of Normanby of the municipality of West Grey. And the final bylaw is to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Dickert, seconded by Councillor Patterson. It's now on the floor for any discussion. Seeing no hands, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. That allows us to move on to news and celebrations. So I'd like to ask the CAO to open up some news.
Thank you, Warden Matrosofs. With the approval of today's bylaws, I just wanted to provide some further context as to one of those bylaws that was just approved. Mary Lou Spicer, the county's Director of Finance and Treasurer, has decided to take an early retirement after more than 24 years with Grey County. Mary Lou has made a lasting impact through her commitment to public service and financial stewardship, and we're grateful for her contributions over the years and wish her all the best in the next chapter. To assist with the transition, Sue Murray will assume the acting treasurer role on an interim basis, and that was just confirmed by the bylaw that was just approved. And Garrett Reed will serve as acting deputy treasurer. And these interim roles are to remain in place while we undertake a recruitment process for a permanent treasurer that will occur later this year. And I just want to thank both obviously Mary Lou, Sue, Garrett, and the entire financial team for their help and support through this transition.
Thank you very much, and please convey our best wishes in the next chapter, as you said. It's never the end, it's always another beginning, isn't it? And with that, we also have a construction wrap-up video to show. So who will be organizing that? Excellent. Mr. Ireton, welcome to the lectern.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, County Council. I'm happy to bring before you today a highlight reel showcasing some of our capital construction projects from 2025. These projects reflect the county's ongoing commitment to investing in a safe, reliable, sustainable transportation infrastructure. So throughout the year, we continued to expand our network of paved shoulders, improving safety and accessibility for all road users, while also delivering several pavement preservation initiatives designed to protect our infrastructure investments and extend the service life of our road network. As we often say, one of the most cost-effective strategies available to us is keeping our good roads good. While the video highlights the engineering achievements of the construction season, it also serves as a reminder of the remarkable landscapes that we have across our county which makes it such a special place. From rolling farmland, forests, and escarpment vistas to beautiful shorelines, rivers, and vibrant rural communities, these projects are woven into the fabric of our county and makes it a privilege to serve. I also want to acknowledge the dedication of county staff, our consulting partners, contractors, conservation authorities, and utility agencies whose collaborative efforts helped make these projects a success. I'd also want to especially recognize our county engineering team, whose work extends far beyond the construction season itself. Throughout the year, the team is responsible for developing and advancing capital project designs, investigating traffic and drainage concerns, responding to emerging infrastructure challenges, coordinating with stakeholders, and continually seeking innovative solutions to improve the safety, efficiency, and longevity of our transportation network. The success of our annual capital program is built upon countless hours of planning, analysis, design, and problem solving that often occur long before construction equipment arrives on site. The professionalism, technical expertise, and commitment to continuous improvement play a critical role in delivering the infrastructure that supports our communities. So I hope you enjoy this brief look back at the 2025 construction season and the continued investment being made towards our county.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I look forward to watching it in action there in the video, which will come up shortly. Excellent. Thank you very much for both the words and the visual presentation of that. So many of those roads I recognize on my regular commute between the Blue Mountains and here and across all the other places I've been able to visit across the county. And I know that we're all watching our particular corners of the county and seeing what kind of progress that makes. And I have to say, the map that I have of Grey County that I keep in my office back in the Blue Mountains is specifically the one that marks not just all the roads, but the culverts and bridges too. Because it's so important for us to remember all of the work that goes under and in all of that work that we just see on the surface. So when members of the public see the beautiful surfaces that you've redone, there's so much more behind it. And we very much appreciate everything you do to keep that structure going. Okay. So with that, we are in news and celebrations. I'll open it up to the council floor for news from our municipalities. We'll start with Councillor McKay.
Thank you, through you, Warden. Hope everybody remembers that it's the 100th anniversary of the Legions, and hope you get out and support your local Legion next weekend, which is something the 18th of July. The branch in Chatsworth is celebrating the 100th anniversary by having a fun day for the whole family with free food and activities. So on a free hamburger or hot dog, drop into the Legion between 11 and 5. So hopefully good weather. And we got a big bouncy castle coming.
Excellent, thank you. We did a big cake, but we did not do a bouncy castle, so. We'll go to Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you very much, Warden Matrosoff. Just would like to invite everybody to the Markdale Street Frolic this Friday. Happens right in downtown Markdale. We won't be in the construction zone of Grey Road 12, but I'm having fun running the bingo game. And if you're wanting some entertainment, I'll be taking part in a Hot One Wing Challenge just outside the vault. So if you want to laugh at me while I burn my lips, come on down. 6:15 to 6:30, I think, is the eating challenge. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other news from any other council members? Okay, I'm not seeing any further hands then, so we'll look. Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Eccles.
Camera's on me. Okay. To Councillor McKay, yes, the Durham Legion Branch 308 will be celebrating Canadian Legion 100th birthday this weekend, starting on Friday night. All activities on Saturday as well too, plus a Caesar Sunday, and on the patio, a full weekend of events to celebrate 100 years of the Canadian Legion. So look forward to anybody on that. Last weekend was a grand celebration of the homecoming for Ayton Normanby. Went off very well. A little bit of weather-related problems on Saturday morning, but by 10 o'clock, the skies had cleared and the activities continued on. We had council on Tuesday, and there was a couple of council members that were still suffering the effects of celebrating the weekend. Those ones that come from that Normanby region, not to mention any names. Fantastic, and congratulations to the group of a great weekend festivities in Ayton over that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, seeing no further hands on, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Nielsen. All those in favor? This council meeting is adjourned. We'll give a moment before we begin committee of the whole. Okay, we are set to go, so I will call to order this committee of the whole meeting of July 9th, 2026. At this point in time, I'll put out a call. Are there any declarations of interest on today's agenda? Seeing no hands raised, we'll progress. Business arising from minutes. Okay, so then we will move on then to, we do have a delegation this morning. I would like to welcome both Ashley Cameron and Robin Strangeway Calder, who will be providing us with the delegation. But let me first get the motion on the floor before they speak. So I will look for a motion that the financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2025 be received, and that the treasurer be hereby authorized to approve and sign the financial statements, and the staff be authorized to proceed prior to county council approval as per section 26(6)(b) of the procedural bylaw 513422. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Okay, I'm gonna get somebody fresh here. So I'm gonna go Councillor Mackey and Councillor Hutchinson seconding. Thank you. It's now on the floor for discussion. So welcome to you. The lectern is yours, and we'll just make sure that we alternate between when the red light is on. So I'm going to turn mine off and you can turn yours on, and we'll go back and forth.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Excellent. I'd like to thank council for having me here this morning. I'm Robin Strangway Calder. I'm the engagement partner on your audit, and I assumed the role that used to be Tracy Smith upon her retirement. I have with me Ashley Cameron, a manager who's taken over the role of supervising the audit. I'd like to thank your entire management team for their assistance during the audit. I'd especially like to thank Garrett, Sue, Mary Lou, and the rest of the finance team. Preparation of the financial statements, including all the disclosures and the notes, is the responsibility of your management team. Although we can assist in formatting and making suggestions on the wording, all the numbers are provided by your management team from the accounting records of the county. If you have any questions during the presentation, I would be happy to stop my presentation and answer them as we go, or you can save them until the end. The first item we'll be going through is the letter that goes along with the draft financial statements. This is a required communication under Canadian auditing standards, so the content of this letter will seem very similar to prior years. The financial statements need to be approved by council before MNP can issue a final audit report, and that is why the statements in the other package are unsigned at this time. For us to issue final statements, they need to be approved, and then management signs a representation letter, and we finish subsequent event work up to the date that they are approved. Materiality remained unchanged from planning at $6 million. No suspected, actual, or alleged fraud came to our attention during the audit. Should you become aware of any, please reach out to us directly. We did not find any deficiencies in the internal controls that we tested during the audit. If I keep moving on, I'm just going to continue with a few highlights. I can confirm that we are independent. There is a detailed letter in Appendix A that outlines our communication in regards to that under Canadian auditing standards, but I won't go into it in detail. We are independent and therefore can issue an independent auditor's report. And there were no unadjusted differences that were identified during the audit, so there is no schedule of unadjusted differences included in this package. Does anyone have any questions about this required communication before we move on to the statements themselves?
So I'll just look around the room to see if anybody has any questions at this point. Seeing none, please carry on.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to look at the consolidated statement of financial statements, starting with the independent audit report. Our audit opinion appears before the financial statements, and it's the only part of this package that belongs to us, or part of the statements that belongs to us. The statements are management, as I already went over, and the audit opinion belongs to MNP. It is an audit opinion and is the highest level of assurance that can be provided by a public accountant. In second paragraph under opinion is where we say that, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. The financial position of the county as at December 31st, 2025, for the year ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Therefore, it is a clean audit opinion, and we had no issues or concerns that came to our attention during the audit. In the middle of the report, it highlights management's responsibility for the financial statements, and at the bottom of this page, it also highlights those charged with governance, in this case, council, are responsible for overseeing the county's financial reporting process. On the next page, it details the responsibilities of the auditor, which I won't go into in detail. So if there's no questions about the audit opinion itself, we'll move on to the statement of financial position. On page 4 of the financial statement is the statement of financial position or balance sheet. It presents the county's financial state assets and liabilities at a point in time on December 31st, 2025. Financial assets totaled $130 million, with $118 million of that in cash and investments. You will notice that cash decreased compared to last year, and that was due to timing of deferred revenue that had been on hand at the end of last year, but was spent during the year. So basically, you're holding less provincial funding in the bank at the end of 2025 because you used it in 2025 compared to last year. Liabilities totaled $94 million. And included in that is included in that is $40.9 million in normal trade payables and accrued liabilities that were paid subsequent to year end. There's also $36.5 million in deferred revenue, which is broken down in the continuity schedule on page 30 of the financial statements. Within that schedule of deferred revenue, you'll see that there's $24.5 million in unspent development charges and $8 million unspent Canada Community Building Funds, previously referred to as gas tax, that are available to be spent in future years. These are really more like reserves, but because they are legislated, they don't get recorded as revenue until they're actually used to finance projects or unspent. There is also $11 million received late in 2024 for Rockwood Terrace in advance of expenditures being incurred, since those were spent in 2025 because the Rockwood Terrace project proceeded. That's why deferred revenue decreased so much. Total assets of 130 million less liabilities of 94 million comes to the net financial assets of 36 million. Below that, you'll see the non-financial assets increased to 307.1 million, and this includes the tangible capital assets, which are the linear infrastructure, roads, buildings, vehicles, and that increased to 305.4 million in the year. The bottom of this comes to the accumulated surplus of 343 million. It is the equity of the council and includes both monetary assets and your physical assets. The detailed breakdown can be seen in note 6, accumulated surplus. And this is where you can also see that the reserve balance is 65.5 million because that equity number includes your reserves. On the next page is the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. The statement of operations is the transactions for the year. Revenue include all external revenues for both operating and capital. You can see that total revenue for 2025 was 213 million. Included in this is taxation, fees and user charges, government transfers, and other income. If we look at government transfers for a moment, you will see that the actual of 106 million was lower than the budgeted amount of 113.8 million. A lot of this relates to the Canada-wide childcare funding coming from the province. So it's sometimes referred to as CWELC or QUELC. Basically, the province sent funding amounts that they were willing to give up to, and they cash flowed a lot of it, but it wasn't used in 2025. And since it wasn't used, it can't be recognized as revenue, but that budget was based on that maximum funding that was available to centers should they take advantage of all of the spots and one-time startup funding. That's partly why accounts payable was so high on the balance sheet, is that because that money was cash flowed and not used, it is due back to the province. The other item is other income budget of 23 million compared to actual of 15.9 million. A lot of that was that it was anticipated to be using a lot more development charges for capital in 2025, but timelines changed on some of those capital projects. And so since those development charges weren't used in 2025, they cannot be recognized as revenue. Expenses including operating costs. Expenses include operating costs, amortization, and accretion for asset retirement obligation. It does not include capital or reserve transfers. Total expenses for 2025 were $185.8 million. Budget expenses and actual expenses are significantly different because the actual expenses include amortization of those tangible capital assets as required by public sector accounting standards. Amortization is a non-cash amount for accounting purposes, which is the estimate of the wear and tear on physical assets from their use. And it's based on the historical cost of the assets that they're set up in the balance sheet. the budget does not include amortization. So if amortization was removed from actual expenses, then the actual expenses would be 171 million, which is more in line with the total budgeted expenses for 2025. Total revenue less total expenses comes to the annual surplus of 27.2 million. The 27.2 million annual surplus presented on this statement is not the operating surplus. The annual surplus on this statement focuses on the long term. It is the amount of external revenue raised during the year after paying all operating costs and to cover amortization. The annual surplus should always be a positive amount to be able to make debt payments and also be large enough to fund capital asset purchases. So you don't see on this statement what would be the operating surplus for the year. So on April 23rd, there was a report to council that reported a projected operating surplus of 1.8 million that was transferred into reserve, and that didn't change significantly as a result of the audit. The next statement is the statement of changes in net financial assets, and it takes that annual surplus for the year of 27 million from the previous page and adjusts for amortization and the actual amount that was spent on capital assets during the year. So during the year, there was 51 million in capital assets acquired. So the statement comes down to a decrease in net financial assets of 7.2 million, which agrees to the change in the assets on the balance sheet. The 2025 budget had anticipated that Rockwood Terrace project would be further along at the end of 2025. And that is why the budgeted decrease in net financial assets was so much larger at 64 million. The project had anticipated incurring both external debt and utilizing reserves. And so you can also see that in note 8 of the budget. So if we were to look at note 8 in the budget, you would see that there was budgeted reserve transfers and receiving more debt. And since that didn't happen because the capital expenditures weren't incurred, that's also why there wasn't as large a decrease in net financial assets in the year. So the difference to budget is just reflecting changing in timelines. I've tried to keep the presentation at a high level overview, so I'm not going to go into the rest of the statements in more detail unless anyone has any specific questions. So I guess, any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll put it out to committee of the whole members if they have any questions about any of the other details that were already in the information or what was presented today. We'll go to Councillor Greig.
Well, thank you for the presentation this morning, and these two questions are probably more for staff, but the one item was government transfers. It was budgeted at 42 million. The actual is 36 million. 24 was 32 million. Really, the answer here just supports me when we're looking at the report later, our corporate financial update, as to that difference between the 42 million and the 36 million. I presume it's just government transfers. So I guess perhaps that's maybe more to Garrett and Sue just to reply to that.
Okay, so I'll invite Manager Reid to come to the lectern and provide a response.
Good morning, through the warden. Yeah, that's a good question. So that is the social services grant that you're referencing on page 28, page 20. That is our CWELP grant. So we don't know our grant funding when we develop the budget. Usually it comes out, somehow they know, and they do it about a week after we pass the budget. And then Tara Cockrell brings a report back saying, here's the changes that we're proposing based on the changes in funding. 2025 was the first year of us being fully within the CWELP program. So it was a complete overhaul in our funding. The $42 million budget is still pretty close to the overall funding they provided, but there were quite a few buckets that we could not use in the year. The first two that are top of mind is startup and infrastructure funding that was available to build new childcare centers or enhance childcare centers, but there was no increase in our licenses attached to that funding. So the operators kind of had the opinion that why would we build this space if the province isn't going to provide us with the CWELP funding? So we weren't able to spend any of it. So the province has cash flowed it. We're going to give that back to the province because we had no use for it. The other is because it was done mid-year and Tara and her team were scrambling to get it rolled out to as many providers as we could with our license counts. We didn't spend our full CWELC allocation for the operating funding either, because by the time we got them enrolled in the new system, we were already, 3-4 months into the year, and working through that. There was also some changes within our non-CWELC funding for childcare, as a result of the increased CWELC funding. One of the major things we spend money on is a fee subsidy for parents that can't afford the full rate of daycare. And that's a formula that we have based on income and based on cost of childcare, how much that we reimburse for a given family, and that's administered by the county. As more families in Grey County get on the CWELC program and are paying $22 a day, or $22 a day, more families become ineligible for that fee subsidy because their overall daycare costs have gone down. So that is a fair number. I think it actually might be a bit higher. I think that variance you mentioned is about $5.7 million budget to actual. I think we're actually giving back about just north of $6 million to the province of childcare funding that we are not able to use.
Okay, thank you for that response. And maybe don't go too far because really my questions do just support me looking at the 1/3 of the way through the year 2026. The auditors did point out in page 29, the notes to the consolidated financial statements show year over year. So just a question of there's growth in the transportation salaries, which is probably explained by the overtime accumulated during the heavy winters. Beside that is human services went from 67.8 million to from 62.8 million. So just wondering if you could explain a little more so on particularly the human services salaries line there.
Yep, through the warden. Correct. The transportation will be a result of increased overtime cost and wages as a result of the harsh winter, which we talked about in our year-end transfer report. Human services, so as a reminder to council, that's made up of the housing department, social services, long-term care, and paramedic services. And you're correct, that increased 2025 over 2024 by 4.9 million, which would be an increase of about 8%, a little bit less than that. So obviously we would expect it to increase every year with collective agreement wages and cost of living adjustments for non-union staff. But within the paramedic and long-term care departments, there were also increased staffing. So I'll start with paramedic services. We have our deployment enhancement plan where we're adding shifts. In 2024, we added 2 shifts, which requires 8 full-time paramedics plus backfill. But because of how the funding works, we don't start that enhancement until July 1st in the year. So when you're looking at 2024, you'll only have half a year of actuals on those enhancements. And then in 2025, they'll have been here for the full year. And then in 2025, July 1st, there was another enhancement to add 1 more shift. And again, that would have started July 1st. So when we're looking at the paramedic increase, it's partially due to collective agreement wages increases and non-union wage increases, but it's really that we've added essentially 3 shifts to our operations. And again, the 2024 wouldn't include the full cost of the 2024 enhancement because we started halfway through the year. Similarly to long-term care, council will remember that in 2024, the long-term care department had a large surplus as there was an increase in grant funding. Part of that was case mix index. Part of it was also increase in direct care funding from the province. We did not know of that increase until partway through the year. So same thing, we then go out and need more staff to meet those direct care hours, which are then funded by the province through that grant program. But when you're just looking at the salary and benefits line, yes, it will show a big increase. But then if we're looking at those 2 same pages, you'll also see an increase in government transfers as well for that department, as there's now more long-term care funding to cover off those wage increases, as well as more 50-50 funding as part of the paramedic services grant formula. So it is partially increase in just the cost of our staffing, but those 2 very large departments did have staffing enhancements in 2024 and 2025, which will impact those numbers.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'll look around if there are any other questions. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any then, and we do have a motion that has been moved and seconded that is on the floor, so I'll call the vote for that then. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming and presenting the material to us today. And thank you to Manager Reed as well for providing the extra information. At this point in time, we will look at our list in item 6, the consent agenda, and I'll put a call out for any of those items. There are 5 items listed, any that any committee of the whole member wishes to pull for a separate discussion. Okay, Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'll wish to pull 6A.
Okay, so 6A has been pulled. And Councillor Gray.
6E, please.
6E has been pulled. Any others? Okay, so seeing no further hands then, it is recommended that the following consent items be received and that staff be authorized to take the actions necessary to give effect to the recommendations in the staff reports, and that the correspondence be supported or received for information as recommended in the consent agenda, noting that we will look at items 6A and 6E separately. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Keaveney, seconded by Councillor Eccles. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. So we'll make sure we revisit those items after section 7. So we will now move on to our items for discussion. The first one is item 7A. It is, it's recommended that report EDTC CW 0926 regarding the Bruce Dufferin Gray Wellington Regional Transit Study update and interim recommendations be received, and that council endorse the contract extension of the GTR Route 2 and GHOST and reintroduce the GTR Route 5 from Owen Sound to Wyerton until a decision can be made on a unified regional transit network and subject to funding approval from the province, and that all service be funded within the approved 2026 county budget allocations and supported by the Ontario Transit Investment Fund, known as OTIF. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Got a move by Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Dobreen. It's now on the floor for discussion. And so, okay, we will begin with Director Myers.
Thank you. I'm just buying Stephanie a moment to come into the room. I just wanted to make a note that this is the same, almost the same report that was on the agenda in May. We pulled it off the report because we were in the midst of conversations with the province, but after last week, we finally got some answers, which is good. So we are back with an amendment to that report, and Stephanie is going to present it. So I will hand it over to her. Good morning. Oh. All right. So as Savannah said, I will be providing you with a little bit of an update. So I'll begin with the overall study update. And then I'll move into the intern service recommendation for council's consideration. So the purpose of this report is to provide you with an update regarding the Bruce Dufferin Gray Wellington Regional Transit Study and recommend interim measures to maintain and introduce temporary service while the regional working group continues to investigate potential of a unified regional transit network. Since our March council presentation, the project team has continued to work alongside Dillon Consulting towards a draft unified regional transit plan. In the past couple of months, several developments have unfolded in parallel to this work, including the ask from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus to establish a regional transit authority, which is modeled after this work that we're doing here today. So following those discussions, as Savannah has discussed, we will continue this great work and we will come back to you soon. As staff understand it, the Bruce Dufferin Gray Wellington Regional Transit Study is the largest of its kind in the province, which contributes to its overall complexity. Project partners are recommending more time is given to the current study phase to ensure the best possible information is available for councils and the SMART board to make their decision on a unified regional transit network. Staff suggests taking the summer to gather more information to supplement the draft plan through a request for information regarding technology and operator interest to explore the requirements and potential of a unified rideshare bylaw. Staff will also continue to work alongside the MTO to better understand the OTIF program and gas tax opportunities and limitations, along with implications from changes to Bill 98 and the Metrolinx Act. As project partners have been going through the study, the need for further analysis regarding specialized transit has also been identified. With the support of OTIF, this will be explored in further detail as part of the final leg of our study. With more time and this additional information, the project team and Dillon Consulting would return this fall to present the draft plan and recommendations for information. At that time, staff will seek direction to include budget allocations in the proposed draft 2027 budget for consideration. Final recommendations for decision would be brought forward to councils and the new SMART board in 2027. I'll now turn to the interim service recommendations, which is intended to maintain continuity while the broader study work continues. So as per the report we shared with you in November of 2025, the Grey Transit route from Dundalk to Orangeville and Guelph to Owen Sound was extended until August 31st, 2026 to ensure service continuation during the study period. As the study period progresses, the project team is recommending a pre-approval phase that sees the continuation of those existing routes, along with the reintroduction of GTR Route 5 from Owen Sound to Wyerton and a seasonal Sawboat Beach service in 2027, until a decision can be made on a unified transit network. All services would exist under the same operating and funding currently in place. Staff from the project partners, so Bruce County, Dufferin County, Grey, and Wellington, along with SMART, see value in these services and are aligned in their support of sustaining these operations during the study period and using the OTIF funding to accommodate these extensions. As a pre-approval phase, continuing the service ensures that riders are not left without access, while long-term solutions are being considered and helps avoid a loss of ridership. It also provides Bruce County with temporary service on a previously popular route, including coverage during peak seasons until a recommendation for a permanent solution can be developed. The interim approach also helps leverage available OTIF funding. By utilizing 2026 budget allocations from each county and pending OTIF approval from the province, there's no additional funding required to maintain this interim phase. Funding required for 2027 operations will be included in the annual budget for council consideration. So in summary, the recommendation is to allow the study team more time to complete regional transit planning work while using available funding to maintain temporary reintroductions and key services so riders are not left without access during this decision-making period. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to start with Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you very much, Warden Matrosoff. I think the question I have is more along the lines of the reintroduction of the GTR Route 5. And my question only is because if you can just refresh my memory as to how long it has been out of service, if we're reintroducing it. And two, it's out of service, we're putting it back into service. We're not 100% sure it's going to continue service. That's the part where I don't understand the logic in redoing it for a short period of time when we're still discussing what the broader picture looks like. So if you can just help me understand the logic there.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Nielsen. So to answer your first question, it started October 2020 and went till December 2024. So part of the logic is, as I mentioned, it was a really popular route. And right now Bruce County is without a service. So it would support the Bruce County residents that are in need of a transit option. I do hear your concerns and I understand, but at the same time, there's also a need and we are trying to service that need as well. And I see.
Through you, Warden, just to build on that, and thank you for those explanations, Stephanie. So another item to the importance of the Owen Sound to Wyerton route. Warden Matrosoff, I think, provided an update a couple months ago that we attended along with Bruce County Warden and CAO to the Chippewas and Nawash. And they have a bus that provides a connection between Chippewas and Nawash and Wyerton. And so this Owen Sound to Wyerton will allow them to get to Wyerton, but also to get to Owen Sound if needed as well. So that was an important connection for them. So we see reestablishing that not only provides the Bruce County connection, because again, this is a partnership that's being done as part of this project. And all the other three county partners have some sort of roots in them. This would provide that Bruce County connection in the interim until we finalize the study. When we look at where we're looking at the routes and other things in terms of the long-term study, those pieces would still be part of what would be coming forward as some of those recommendations. So we're confident that those would be part of the recommended network going forward as well. So those are some of the considerations as to why these are recommended.
Okay, follow-up, Counselor Nielsen?
Thank you very much, Warden Matusoff. So just, I think one main follow-up is where are we on the timeline of the study completion? Just maybe help. We have the report suggesting that the funding is in place, that there's no extra capital costs or funding costs needed from the county, but that it will be a budget discussion for 2027. And so I'm just trying to wonder, do we know where we are on the project completion for the study we're doing? And where are we at to the end of that? Because we've already had few discussions on what the 27 budget's looking like. And as we keep having these discussions, it just impacts that.
Thank you, through you, Warden. Right now, the intent is to come back later this year with the draft study. We are getting very, very close to the end of it. The amount of number crunching that has gone on in the last little while as things constantly change has been impressive. So I think that what we wanted to ensure is that we have crunched everything possible, and we've looked at all of the if this, then that, things that could happen as part of this so that we can bring it back. But what we do know is that we're not going to ask this council for approval of the whole network at this moment, because by the time it comes back to you, we are right in transition mode. So it would be looking to new council to make a formal decision on whether or not they're ready to support a unified transit network, but we want to make sure that this council is aware of all of the work that's been done, because you have been with us all along the path so that you can see what we're looking at. And then that would give you an indication of what would be included in that budget going forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go online to Counselor Bordignon.
Thank you, and good morning, County Council. Good morning, Warden, through you. We've talked about this in the past. We talked about our regional partners, Bruce, Dufferin Gray, Wellington, Saugeen. What about Simcoe? I know it's been in the conversation in the past, and we know just from being at the far east end of the region, the need for more regional transit. Not just the resort, but we have other employers in the area and people moving back and forth. So can somebody just reiterate the points of the possibility of looking at Simcoe? I don't know if it's for the CAO but through the Warden, if staff could answer that, please.
Yes, thank you. We're going to go to the CAO for that.
Through you, Warden, thank you for that question, Councillor Bordignon. So what I'll start with is that we are fortunate that the same consultant that we're using for this study is also the consultant that Simcoe is using for part of their transit review as well. And so the sharing of information has been a lot easier to be able to provide some of those updates. And so with that, we've had some preliminary conversations with Simcoe County, as well as Collingwood, as well as other providers that provide transit connections that don't just end at the border, so to speak, to make sure that whatever transit network is being recommended, there's connections that are being provided to those routes. So that is being implemented and being discussed actively as part of the study work. And to make sure that at the end of the day, hopefully we'll be able to also look at things like unified fare structures, unified payment systems, et cetera, long-term as well. So that's the goal, is to try to not just look at the end of those borders of those 4 counties, but how they connect overall. As Stephanie indicated as well, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus is very interested in what this looks like as a model that could be scaled to all Southwestern Ontario. So back to Savannah's earlier comments, making sure that we get this right. We're taking the time to get this to do this study work is very important, because there's lots of folks that are very interested in the results of this study. So that is something also that we're looking at. So we recognize it's even bigger than the 4 county and the 4 partners, 4 county partners. It has to connect and be scalable and connect to other operations that are throughout our neighbors as well.
Thank you. And I would add to that too, that the provincial interest and our local provincial representation definitely sees the value that what we do here, the work we do here could be duplicatable, not just across the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, but across counties across Ontario. We're all looking for the same solutions. So people are watching and I'm glad because there's great work going on. So thank you very much for that. Any other questions? We'll go to Councillor McQueen. Oh, sorry, a follow-up, Councillor Borgnell?
No, thank you, Madam Warden. You answered my next follow-up in your comments, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll go to Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just to follow up with Councillor Nielsen with regards to budget wise, any idea when that might be coming? Hold up for a minute. I like what you were saying, Randy, about fees and how we can charge. I mean, the system has to be sustainable. And I know with the past, with the grants, we're limited to what we could charge. Are we able to move past that? So it costs money to have a car, insurance, gas and stuff like that. So, $5 a ride, it's not sustainable at $5 a ride. So point is roughly when that budget numbers will be coming with the options, I'm sure, but also the model that makes it sustainable in the sense of what we can charge for fees.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor McQueen. So we have heard the feedback over the last few years of operating the previous system. So I can assure you that when we do present our final findings, we will present a different fee structure to assist in the sustainability of a regional system and also accounting for the large geography that people may be traveling. So as Savannah noted, when we bring that all back to you in the future, it will all be covered in those documents.
Okay, we'll go to the Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and thank you, Stephanie, for the report and Savannah. Without necessarily pulling the curtain back too far, Savannah alluded to a lot of number crunching, a lot of idea crunching. I'm wondering if you could give us any kind of sense of where are the pain points and where are we kind of headed and why is this taking so much longer than we anticipated? Please.
Well, that's a tricky question, but I'll take a stab at that. I think as soon as you go beyond one council and one county and work with 4 and a huge geography, like we're talking over 12,000 square kilometers, we're 53% larger than the GTHA. This is the biggest study of its kind in the province. So that complexity alone has really added to it because everybody has a little bit of a different need. So trying to understand where those base levels could be and where those enhancements could be so that we're not all on the hook for the same things. We're on the hook for what matters to us, but we're also sharing those base components as well. So that has been complex. A lot of certainty. That's a conversation that we just had with provincial staff and our minister delegates, because understanding that provincial certainty really matters when it comes to gas tax, for example. We have frozen figures, but they're based on assumptions from ridership 2 years ago. So it's trying to figure out when is the proper timing to actually look to gas tax. As OTIF goes down, gas tax could come up. But originally it was slated right from the very beginning. So that is one of those policy certainty pieces as well, trying to make sure that we utilize and leverage the dollars that are available to the best ability that we have while looking to year 6. So I don't know if that was me. I will say that year 6 backwards is how we have been doing all of the financial crunching, because we need to know when OTIF is no longer available, what does that look like on the budget? That is where we have spent the majority of our focus, making sure that we can be comfortable bringing something forward to this table and 3 other councils and a board, knowing that we are all in this together. So looking around the different Metrolinx Act, Bill 98, all of those pieces, even though they don't actually apply to us this very moment, Metrolinx applies to 2 of the 4 partners. So there are little bits and pieces that we just need to be sure about before we come back with a recommendation, because the last thing we would want is to ask you for your approval and your endorsement of something and then realize that we actually asked you for the wrong thing. So that's why it's taken a little bit longer. But I think that right now project partners feel very comfortable with the information that we're gathering, the work that we're doing, and the extra time that we've taken, and we're hoping the council will be supportive of that as well.
Thank you. Anything further? We'll go to Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. And just to follow up on Councillor McQueen's comments regarding the fare structure, I'm still, when we're looking at reintroducing another route, why we are so fixated and stuck on $5 a ride. Over the years that we've had this service, the wages for the driver went up, the mechanics have went up, the bus costs more to buy, the fuels has increased. None of these costs have went down. And for a young person, they're paying $10 a day approximately just to get insurance on their own vehicle. They haven't bought the car or the truck yet. They're just insuring what they're going to plan on driving. When I looked at the audited financial statements, we have like 10.5 to $11 million in fees and charges that we derive from our own revenues as a corporation, which is about the same as we have in Owen Sound. And I wonder if we shouldn't be more concerns, not the right word, but look for opportunities to increase that line item in our budget. And this is one of those where I get it. You're going to bring the report back and you'll look at a fare structure. But here's another opportunity after 5 or 6 years where in reintroducing a route, it could be $6 a ride. And people would understand that. People will push back. Everybody wants everything for free. But when you explain it and say over this many years, the price has been static. And as a corporation, we should identify that opportunity for increased revenues because that in itself makes it more sustainable long-term. If people pay their fair share, and when you parallel it with the cost of owning a vehicle, it's a really good bargain. So I struggle with why we pass up an opportunity even now for an opportunity to derive some increased revenues and make it more sustainable.
Through you, your worship. Thank you, Councillor Greg. So just as a note, the reintroduction of Route 5, there is a fare increase. So previously it was $3.50 one way, and we have increased it to $5. So there is an increase on that new introduction or reintroduction, sorry. I also think there's a piece of this puzzle is right now the system is not, you can't go all over yet. So right now you're still kind of in sections. So you can go Owen Sound to Wyerton, you can go Owen Sound to Guelph, and then you can do Dundalk to Orangeville. So I think there's some legitimacy in leaving the fares the way they are at this exact moment. I appreciate your comment. Like, I hear where you're coming from, but I think because the system is not completely connected yet, there is rationale to leave it at its current price, but happy to reconsider if that's the wish of council.
Okay. All right. Oh, we'll go to Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Stephanie. I know there's a lot of work being done, and I guess my question is in regards to point as opposed to fixed route. What is being looked at from point to point based on our geographic vastness? Point to point, in my opinion, is going to be a necessity. I don't think there'll be any fixed route going to Walters Falls. So how does that person get to Highway 6 or Highway 10? So could you just elaborate on what work's being done on point to point, please?
Through your worship. Thank you, Councillor Mackey. So there's a few different options that will be presented to you in the future as to how the system can work. There will be potentially a fixed route system. Previously, our consultant in March spoke to the different options as well. So a fixed route, there can be point to point, as you noted. There's the first mile, last mile connection, so helping people get to the fixed route. So there's various options that you can kind of turn on and turn off, and they all come with different costs associated to them. And they all come with different pros and cons. So currently our peers in Wellington County have point to point across their entire geography. And as noted, there's pros and cons to both. So I think once we come back with our final study results, we can show you all of the different options and how we plan on rolling out a successful system. So I assure you, those things will come back to you soon with some more detail.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, then I don't see any further hands. Thank you very much for all that extra information. I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. We'll call a break now. We're at just past 10 after. So if we can be back by 11:20, that will allow us to carry on with items 7A and B and then return to 6A and E. Thank you. Okay, we are at 11:20, so I'll invite everybody to come back to the council chamber. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we are on to item 7B at this point in time. It's recommended that report PDR CW 2726 regarding the approval of the municipality of West Grey's new official plan for the primary settlement areas of Durham and Neustadt be received, and that the committee of the whole hereby approves the new official plan for the primary settlement areas of Durham and Neustadt in the municipality of West Grey as adopted by bylaw 2025-105, subject to those modifications attached to the report PDR CW 2726 as Appendix 1. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? We have it moved by Councillor Hutchison and seconded by Councillor Nielsen. It's now on the floor for discussion. So I would like to welcome Senior Planner Buckton up.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Warden. Very glad to be here with you today. We'll be brief, but just have some highlights to offer with respect to the staff report as has been presented. So as the warden had noted, the recommendation of the report is approval of the West Grey official plan for the primary settlement areas of Durham and Neustadt, subject to the modifications that staff have outlined within Appendix 1 of the report. There are a few things that we must address when we're assessing an official plan for approval. So I thought I would give just a very high level background, highlight those things have been met, and we can move along. This official plan, I was thinking as I was sitting, it's been a process. I think maybe I started with Laura Lee a number of years back, and then David Smith had stick handled through, and now Matt Rapke, as the most recent addition to the planning department, has brought this through to completion. This was approved locally or adopted locally in December, and we have been working with staff since that time just to refine. We picked out a few wee little typos that needed some correction. There was one more major situation where an area of land had been proposed to be added to the settlement area, and staff are actually suggesting perhaps that's better done through a site-specific process. But beyond that, I think the plan is wonderful. They've done a great job in pulling that together, and it's very concise. Sometimes official plans can be a little verbose, like the planners who are engaged in drafting those as well. So this one is very concise. It does what it needs to do, but it does not, go into duplicating county policy and that type of thing. So legislation and policy, that's one of the areas that we're required to analyze as we're looking at a new official plan. So we are required to be consistent with the provincial planning statement and conform to the county plan, as well as have regard for matters of provincial interest. So you'll note within the staff report, I have walked through those areas of provincial interest and has addressed them. Additional detail is found within the staff report at the local level, which is appended to the report as well. And staff do find that we have regard for matters in the Planning Act, and we would find that this is consistent with the provincial planning statement as well, subject to those modifications in Appendix 1. And then, like I said, conformity with the county official plan. So this is a requirement of the Act. I did highlight around that duplication piece. So I think one of the things I really liked about this plan is they've done a really good balancing between the detail that's included locally, but then in referencing also the county policy that might go kind of more expansive around the same issues, rather than embedding that directly into that local plan, which I thought was a nice approach. Great. And so, yes, subject to those modifications, staff find that this would conform to the county official plan as well. And so then just for reference, I've included the schedules. So 3 of the schedules required some updates in relation to modifications. 2 were as they were, but we've got the land use schedule for Durham. We've adjusted that boundary based on the modification around those added lands. Newstat did not see any changes to the land use schedule. The Appendix A for Durham did see some changes, and again, we were just snapping and reflecting the features out to that rounded out boundary. Newstat again, no changes to the constraint schedule versus what was adopted. And then just with respect to the wellhead protection area mapping for Durham, we had done a very minor bringing the boundary out to concession 1, which sat just inside of the boundary of that road previously. So we've brought that mapping just out to that concession 1 boundary for the settlement as well. So I'm happy to address any questions that arise, but I think generally I would leave it there. I think we are in a good position for adoption, and that would be my recommendation to council. Thank you very much, Madam Warren.
Okay, thank you. So I'll put it out to committee of the whole members if they have questions or comments. Okay. Well, I guess the maps say it all. I don't see any questions, any hands being raised. Excellent. Well, thank you. It has been moved and seconded, so I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Planner Buckton. And next we will move to item 7C. It's recommended that report FRCW 1626 regarding the corporate financial update as of April 30th, 2026 be received for information. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Dickert, seconded by Councillor Eccles. It's now on the floor for discussion. And a returning welcome to Manager Reid.
Thank you very much. Through the warden. This report provides a financial update to council as of our financials as of April 30th. A lot can change in those remaining 8 months in the year. I made a joke earlier about provincial funding announcements. Long-term care won't have their funding announcements yet. So there's a lot of variances that can change. And then a lot of the variances you'll see in the financial statements can be explained by seasonality. We pay our insurance once in the year, so it might look like it's in a surplus right now, but that's just because we haven't paid the bill. That's the case in housing. We have paid our corporate insurance policy, but so there's a lot of different timing differences that get explained in this report, and a lot of them repeat themselves throughout departments. So I'm not going to go through it all, but if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm just going to touch on the high level variances that we've noted, and I will also reference that there is a sister report on the consent agenda that provides a detailed update for all of the capital projects as well. So these going together is kind of nice, but again, acknowledging that we only have 4 months of data in there, so things are subject to change. And that these financials that you're seeing are what I would call at a pretty high level, so that the report does not become 1,000 pages. They get reviewed with the financial analyst team and managers and directors on a monthly basis at a much more granular level. I think within housing, I believe there's 2 FRX pages that we provided. I think their actual FRX package that they go through is about 87 pages long. So there is a lot more detail than what you're seeing here compressed. But because we're looking at it corporately, we have to kind of shrink it a little bit. So starting within corporate services, I'll just highlight, and this was in a previous staff report, that there is an expected deficit within the IT capital budget as a result of our switches and wireless access points being over budget. A portion of these costs are due to new buildings that we're constructing. So those costs get built into the capital project, but the replacement of switches and wireless access points within our existing buildings get funded through Jody's IT budget, and they're expected to be in a deficit. Court security, when you're looking at the financials, nothing has been paid as of April 30th, but we have received the invoice from Own Sound today, or we received it before today, as of today. And we had a budget of 400,000. Their actual costs are coming in at about 497,000. So that will create a deficit in the 2026 budget, and will be something we need to add into the 2027 budget to reflect this increase in costs. Within the property budget, at the year-end transfer report, I spoke of how the capital deficit was not as large as we expected, as the roof repairs the emergency roof repairs did not end up getting done in the year. However, now they have been done in 2026 and the budget was not rolled forward. Therefore, it will create a deficit in 2026. Taxation and grants, I just want to flag that one. It's a tricky one. As the taxation is collected by the lower tiers and remitted to the county on a quarterly basis, we usually don't get the year-end reconciliations until a few months after year-end. So it's very difficult for us to project whether we're going to be in a surplus or deficit within supplemental taxes and write-offs in any given year. But what we are going to try to do this year is put out a survey to the lower tier groups and just see if they have an idea right now. Again, acknowledging that subs and write-offs can change drastically from month to month, but just to give us a bit more line of sight, which will be included in the next financial update, which will include a year-end projection as well. Within the planning department, I want to highlight that user fees for application fees are trending to be under budget. There is quite a bit of fluctuation in these based on when things are coming in, but at this point in time, we do expect to be in a shortfall or deficit within the revenue within the planning department based on the volume of applications coming in right now. Economic development and tourism. This was communicated to council through EDTC CW 0526, but there's a few projects that were not carried forward into the 2026 budget that did not get completed in 2025. So staff have brought back a report to get those done in 2020 or get permission to get those done in 2026, as well as an emergency repair at the Sydenham campus for a, I don't want to say this wrong, for a hot water tank and boiler failure. And then the other projects are at Grey Roots and are highlighted in that section. Currently, housing is trending towards a surplus in their user fees. Tenant rents are trending higher than budget right now. This can change a little bit based on tenant circumstances and move-outs and the timeline between move-outs. But based on the first 4 months of data we are looking at slightly higher than budgeted tenant rents from our tenants. The Transportation Services Department, currently we are looking, based on the first half of winter, we are looking at a deficit within that budget again. So we're working to right size that within the 2027 budget. We do not expect it though to be as large as the 2025 deficit was. It wasn't as severe of a winter, but we do anticipate a deficit at this point in time. But again, the severity of that will depend on October, November, December. I want to highlight that there will be a deficit within their machinery and equipment capital budget as a grader was received in 2026 that was included in the 2025 budget and was not rebudgeted for. This is really a timing difference or a timing deficit, as that project would have been funded by reserve in 2025. So we wouldn't have taken that money out of reserve in 2025, but we don't have the authority to take it out of reserve in 2026 without the budget approval or without council approval. So it's really a timing difference. The money's there. It's just the 2026 budget does not include that transfer reserve. So it'll create a deficit to be funded by that reserve at the end of 2026, but it doesn't impact the overall financial position of Grey County. And then lastly, I just want to highlight for the major construction budget that staff are currently monitoring the asphalt indexes as we go through and get our invoicing. At the year-end transfer report last year, I reported a large surplus in the major construction budget, and that was primarily driven by us not using any of our contingencies, which also funds changes in asphalt index pricing. Based on the increases we're seeing right now, we do expect for those contingencies to be consumed more for those asphalt projects that are subject to indexing. And with that, I'm happy to answer any more questions that came up from the report, but those are the high level known surpluses or deficits that we know at this point in time.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. And as you noted, we will be shortly returning to item 6E. So if there is a question that leans more on that side, hold that question for when we get to that report. But in the meantime, questions or comments for Manager Reid? Counselor Eccles.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and through you to Garrett. Just there was a couple in there, the one in transportation on the grader, the roof. How is it that we didn't transfer that to reserve or move that back and forth in reserves? Just, there was one, I believe, in housing. Yep, we did the transfer, didn't get finished in 25, so we moved it. But there's 3 or 4 in here. Yeah, well, we didn't move it, and now we're going to end up with a deficit, and it just had the auditors here and went, what, how can, I guess, what policies do we put in place that would make sure that that does happen for more clarity in the budget moving forward on those projects?
Yep, that's through the warden. That's a great question. We've talked about that as staff about what mechanisms we have to avoid those timing deficits because you said, how did we miss not transferring that money? It's really just when we're developing our next year's capital budget, we're looking at what was in the previous capital plan, and then is there anything in our current capital plan that won't get done? So these would be items that, based on when the budgets were developed in August, September, we thought we're going to get done. I know for the roof, it was an emergency repair. The contractor was ready, and then winter came sooner than we thought, so they couldn't get up on the roof to make the repair. The grader, same thing. The successful tender company was telling us, yep, you're going to have that grader November, December, and then December 31st came and we didn't have a grader. So we work on the best information we have available at the time, but there's always going to be those changes. So whether we look at, having a separate item included kind of at the end of the budget process that says we presented the budget, but now we're also asking to add in these last minute items, which will be funded from reserve from the previous year's budget, and we do that. Or what we've talked about too is when we do the year-end surplus deficit report, and that comes back in March and April, we also say, and staff are looking for authority to fund these projects within the 2026 budget using 2025 reserve funds. Again, it's really a timing difference because staff do not have the authority to touch reserves. So we get that authority through the budget process, and we get that authority through council reports. So probably there is something that we can look at to avoid these timing deficits. And we are talking about how we're going to address that in 2027.
Okay, thank you very much. Others? Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions then, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Manager Reid, and you'll have a moment's rest while we go to 6A, but then we'll bring you back for 6E. Okay, so with that, we will return to item 6A. It's recommended that the correspondence from the municipality of Grey Highlands regarding traffic calming measures on Grey Road 13 be received for information. May I have a mover and a seconder? Got a move by Councillor Nielsen, seconded by Councillor Gregg. It's now on the floor for discussion. Councillor McQueen, you had requested this be pulled.
Well, thank you, Madam Warden and County Council. So this motion was passed at our Community Safety Committee, and we have a Community Safety Committee that sort of followed up. And we used to have our own police services boards meetings or committees. So this is sort of a continuation of that body, and to report back and have meetings roughly 4 times a year, just to talk about the safety of our municipality. So you can see here, as the motion reads, that council advocates the County of Grey for the installation of a physical traffic calming infrastructure for Grey Road 13 as a pilot initiative for the village of Kimberley. So this is not unique just for Kimberley. We have a lot of small villages throughout the County of Grey that transverse through a lot of small communities, and speeding is always an issue. If you travel to Hornings Mills, down into around Fergus and that type of area, you'll see those traffic calming devices that sort of are sort of temporary for the summer months, that sort of sit there, and they do work. They do slow down traffic. They narrow the driving lane. It's just sort of they're sort of physical barriers that sort of stand up there that, like I said, are aren't permanent, but are seasonal and then removed for the winter months, because you can't have barriers when you're plowing snow and that type of thing. So it seems to be something that throughout the province, they, not only Grey County that they use, but throughout the province that they have these physical barriers. Now, they did offer, with the cancellation of the speed cameras, there was offering up money for municipalities, and I understand there's other funding possibly there for that as well. So again, the ask here is, and I want to put a shout out to the county. Over the years, Grey Road 13 and the village of Kimberley has had a lot of items changed that has worked quite successful for traffic calming in the village. And I know it's something that's been ongoing for quite a few years. So the ask here is just to look at a possibility at our roads department to look at, is there something that could be investigated with regards to physical traffic calming that could be used as a pilot project, and maybe also used throughout the county and other areas. So that is the request. And also the second request, that the council requests new speed data from the county of Grey for the village of Kimberley to be reported back to the Community Safety Committee. And that is something that the county does do throughout Grey County. And so they're asking for that latest data. So I'd like to make an amendment to this motion to include that we support the request here of the municipality of Grey Highlands, and maybe come back with a report, or if it needs to be a report, come back how we would initiate the traffic calming, and also the to move forward with providing that information.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for a seconder and then we'll confirm the wording. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nielsen. So it is on the floor. We'll just make sure that the clerk has a moment to capture your wording. Okay, so Councillor McQueen, can you just have a look at the, oh, that hasn't been, that's not showing yet. Okay, so the clerk has captured that the motion be amended to insert the clause that staff be directed to follow up with council on a report to implement traffic calming measures in Kimberley on a trial basis. Is that correct? Okay, and that's correct with the seconder? Okay, so I'll just, as my mic is still live, physical traffic calming measures. Okay. Implement physical traffic calming measures in Kimberley on a trial basis. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. It is on the floor now for discussion. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you. Good morning, and through you, Warden. I'm just wondering, I always am cautious about when we provide direction that the report must include the implementation of the physical traffic calming measures, as opposed to a report that provides options available and costing to that traffic calming measure. Councillor McQueen mentioned just one such physical barrier. There may be others, as opposed to the language that says a report that implements physical traffic calming measures. It almost is, it's just language, but I think we need to see the information and then make a decision as a whole, as opposed to assuming that it will be implemented.
Okay, so in consultation with the clerk, perhaps I'll just ask the mover and seconder if this would help clarify your intent of the motion on a report about the implementation of physical traffic calming measures in Kimberley on a trial basis. Would that capture correctly what you meant to move? Okay, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, that I think that makes good sense to have those options that come back with that report. Just for clarity though, there was a second ask in that motion for the data. Does that have to be included in that motion, or is that something that could just automatically happen?
Okay, we'll go to the CAO. I did hear that you said that is actually already a practice in effect of Grey County, so I'll look to the CAO.
Through you, Warden, as it relates to this, the speed data itself, as correctly noted, we collect that, try to collect that on a regular basis. Transportation service staff, will be collecting, they've deployed some of that, to capture some of that information, to have the latest data. And happy to share that with Greyhound staff, once that's captured. We'll probably have that available in a few weeks. While I can, through you, Warden, just to speak to the matter in terms of when we look for opportunities for physical improvements when it comes to traffic calming, we've tried different measures in various communities across Craig County. We try to incorporate those when we're looking at capital improvements or a capital project that's part of that. And so I just wanted to note that's our typical practice, is when we're doing a capital project, we would look at opportunities to do some sort of traffic calming, or at least try to mitigate some of the impacts that we might try to do to improve overall safety for everybody that's using the roadways and those communities. So that's something that we normally do as part of that practice. We don't have anything that's slated right now in capital program for Kimberley. But of course, always willing to work with municipalities if there's infrastructure improvements that are required for municipalities. That may change some of the timing in terms of what improvements may come forward. So again, we're happy to work with, in this case, Greyhound and staff with respect to those pieces as well. We have tried different measures over the years, and Trevor can speak to some of the things that we've tried in Kimberley specifically: speed limit reductions, some signage, some speed notification signage, I think, that has been installed, and some other improvements here and there over the number of years. Based on the speed data we've seen, there hasn't been much difference in terms of driver behavior for those measures. We've seen that in other cases too, across other communities where we've tried to implement certain things. Some things are maybe more helpful, like physical improvements. But again, those are typically associated with capital projects because they're too costly often to implement outside of a capital project. But we're willing to take the direction of council. If you want a report, we're happy to bring that report back to council and explore other options that might be available for physical improvements outside of a capital project or as part of a capital project.
Follow up, Councillor McQueen.
To you, Madam Warden, thanks for that, Madam Mr. CEO, because I think it's something that we're seeing throughout our communities, is the increased traffic and increased speeds. I think everybody you talk to, everybody agrees with that. You know, there's talk about you put speed bumps. Well, speed bumps don't work because we have snow. And that's, you know, and there are places where they actually put asphalt humps, and it's, I don't know how they work with that in the winter time. There was an accident just recently in somewhere just above Kitchener, somewhere down that area, where a particular farmer was going to cut his hay early in the morning, going down the road, done it for lifetime. Drive that to one other farm, and there was a tractor trailer that came along, never slowed down, and ran into the back of his equipment. And there was no sign of any reduction in speed, and so there, you know, I guess there's just in time for delivery. You know, with the commercial vehicles, they you know, they have to get there, and understand they got a job to do as well. It's just in the point of you know, community like Kimberley, no different than others. There's two things unique there. They don't have sidewalks. And number two is there is a slope, and it has a tendency to keep people a little higher. And I know that the county has done some great things with reduction of speed further up the hill. It just seems to be, from what I gather, communities have had those physical barriers put up. There is a psychological thing that does have a tendency to slow you down. And they're moved. Like if you hit them, they'll move. It's not gonna like something that's permanent or solid. It's something that does have a tendency to slow you down. And I know just in Rivanna, you talked about some of the ones that you've incorporated into your road construction. You know, I'm sure people going north go, that's new, that's different. But you know, there's a physical barrier in the middle of the two lanes. And why was that? Well, I know Rivanna has always been historically an area where speeding has been an issue. So, you know, I think we know that people have to get from point A to B, and I don't think we're trying to stop that, but if it takes, you know, 12 seconds longer in your day to slow people down, I think that's well worth that point of safety and that sort of thing. So it's a request that, and this is not something that we're asking through this motion specifically for Kimberly. We have other communities throughout Grey County that, you know, and we're saying you could use this as a trial area, and something works, something doesn't work, but certainly with options coming back, I think it's something that we sort of have to be mindful in. How do we try to slow that public? And we have growth. Our growth has continued to put more and more traffic on our roads as well. So I'll leave it at that, Madam Warden.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do know that the discussion about temporary speed bumps that can be removed during the winter season has also been something that's been floating out there in the roads infrastructure universe. So I'm sure that any of the potential options under this motion would be included in reports. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you. And I was actually going to wait for the report to come back before debating options, but through you, Warden, you mentioned the temporary speed bumps. I actually asked this question of transportation staff locally, and they do need to be mounted into the pavement. When you drill a hole or create a imperfection in the pavement, come our winters with freezes and thaws, that allows moisture into the pavement, which reduces the longevity of the pavement. I wanted to just talk about the sign that goes on the center line. They have one in Formosa. It's very effective. It catches your attention, you slow down. But again, you're mounting that into the pavement. So we have to weigh those costs, and I will look forward to having the fulsome report in order to evaluate what makes sense and where we can maybe employ different options in our various hamlets to explore what works, what doesn't, and the costs associated with those.
Okay, thank you. So that is the intent of this motion, is to capture the potential options, because it is specified that it'll be options that'll be entertained in the report. So we're not in a debate about which ones are best. We're asking for a report about the options, but it's important that we all understand what we can expect from the report. Councillor McQueen, a brief follow-up.
There we go. Briefly, in the sense that to also investigate funding, because there has been originally funding from the province when they disbanded the traffic cameras, but I've heard something that there's more funding coming. Well, I think that would also help if that's investigated and what options are there as well.
Okay, thank you. So I think we can expect that if we leave it, and if this motion is passed and we leave it in the hands of staff, they will work collaboratively with each other in terms of giving us that kind of information that we would have to contemplate as well. And with that, we'll go to Councillor Gray.
I'll just note, the reason I'll vote against the motion as it's presented right now is it does name a specific community. I would have no problem with the report coming back. I get it, Kimberly's the catalyst for the discussion, but we have not heard from staff that Kimberly is any worse than Desborough or Hopeville or Scone or a plethora of other communities within the county. So to isolate it by naming Kimberly in the motion gives me pause and reason to vote against it. If you want to amend it to examine physical traffic calming measures in the county, which we're charged with oversight for as a whole, I could be supportive of that. I wouldn't presume anything, in terms of cost on the taxpayer in advance. I would wait for the report, but I don't think it's appropriate. I get it. Kimberly was the impetus for the discussion at Grey Highlands, but I don't think the amendment should name a specific community in terms of bringing the report back.
Okay, I have a thought on this. looking at the way that it reads and hearing the discussion, the idea is that perhaps if something were to come through on the report that looks like a good match for a trial in Kimberley, that it might be a county-wide trial. It might be deemed as a good mechanism to test out, and it may be or may not be selected in Kimberley. I'm going to look to the mover to identify if this is, because I'm reading it in Kimberley on a trial basis. So I'm hearing Councillor Graves' concern that it is tied to a specific location, but I've heard you talking about that this could be a good trial for the county to see what's going on and what we could best do. So may I just ask for clarification from the mover on that?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I can maybe try to add some clarity. I mean, certainly the community of Kimberley have been very concerned, shall we say. And certainly I would say it could be removed maybe with the motion attached. That sort of shows where it came from. I just think that they are quite willing to offer up that community. And the whole point was, I think, was not to put the burden in, as far as cost across the whole municipality. I don't think it was looking like special treatment. It was more or less in the sense that, you know, we know there's an issue. We've been working on this for a long time. There is the decline of the road. It just seems to be a community with no sidewalk. It's a community that's very concerned, and they're offering it up as a trial basis. I don't think they're not trying to be taking it away from anywhere else. They're just offering it up as a place to, but I mean, if it needs to be removed, I think you just needed to reference to the resolution that came. So then there's reference that if it comes back from the report, it's still there, that option is available to the county. So I guess
I'll accept the point of order, but I did ask the question to the mover. So I would like to hear the mover finish the thought, and he is. This is the amendment is moved by Councillor McQueen and seconded by Councillor Nielsen. So Councillor McQueen, so I'm hearing that what I would like to do to make clean process on the minutes that will follow this discussion is, you are right, you are correct. If this amendment to the main motion passes, it will be attached to that original motion, which is Councillor Nielsen and Councillor Graves, which refers to the correspondence. So it will definitely be embedded there that this is in response to the correspondence. But because we've already delved into discussion on this particular amendment to the main motion, I would like to be able to look to the clerk. We could do an additional amendment to this amendment to remove Kimberley, or I'm going to look to the clerk to make sure that we're following very carefully the discussion process that we've been in.
I would agree with that there could be an amendment done to remove the reference to Kimberley, to apply more to a county-wide basis, or keeping it as is, I think gives the option to, if successful in Kimberley, for future implementation throughout the county. But I think those are the two immediate paths I see at this point in time.
Okay, so in order for us to be respectful of all of the input that we've heard along the way, there's a main motion way at the back. We're at an amendment to the main motion. If somebody would like to amend this amendment to the main motion to suggest removing in Kimberley so that it is representational of what we've heard about a county basis, I can allow that from either, it can be moved by anybody here at the Horseshoe. So is there somebody that would like to move an amendment to the main an amendment to the amendment? Got to be careful. Yes, point of clarity, Councillor McQueen.
So I guess the point of clarity is what I'm seeking here is the village of Kimberley, the speed drops from 80, 70, 60, 40. Do we want traffic calming on our 80 kilometer or 70 kilometer or 60 kilometer road? This is a 40 kilometer an hour zone. So do we need clarity and on where we're looking for traffic calming? I mean, this is getting into a big, you know, it was referenced Kimberley it is a community on a county road. that has a reduction in speed to 40 kilometers an hour. It's not mentioned in here. But do we need to zero in at what we're looking for traffic calming? Because you could still look for traffic calming at 80 kilometers an hour. I don't know. I don't have that answer. But the idea is Kimberly is an example of other small communities within our Grey County road network that have reduction in speed from the normal speed. I don't know. I'm asking that clarity on that sense because it makes reference to Kimberly because of the circumstance that is there from the speed reduction.
Okay, so just before I look to staff and to the clerk, I will note that in order for, should this be amended, should this amendment go to the main motion, if this is passed through this process, staff would automatically be taking into consideration speed because that's going to be part of the formula in which they advocate for what can work and what cannot work. So I would think that would be already understood, that it would have to be with a lens of speed, but I'll look to either the CAO or to Mr. Ireton for clarification on their understanding of what would this motion look like in a staff report.
Through you, Warden. For most of our physical traffic calming measures that we've looked at in the past, they are associated within communities and will be associated with areas where we have tapered speeds from 80 down to a lower speed limit. So that's the area of focus that we would assume that we'd be looking at in terms of exploring any options. If that's the direction of council, is to look for those traffic calming measure options in communities of that nature. Similar to Kimberly, similar to some of the other communities that have been mentioned. Those are the areas that we'd be looking at where there's those speed reductions from the 80 down to a lower speed limit zone, and where there's some built up area in terms of communities, homes, stores, things of that nature.
The traffic calming measures within hamlets and built up areas within Grey County. Does that cover it?
Okay, so Madam Clerk, to remove in Kimberly and insert. Okay, so the amendment now reads that the motion be, the motion be amended to remove in Kimberly and insert hamlets and built up areas within the county road system. Is there a seconder? We've got it moved by Councillor McLean. Okay, I'll put out another call. Is there a seconder? Okay, it's seconded by Councillor Kentner. So that's now on the floor for discussion. The only discussion we're having now is the removal of in Kimberly and the addition of hamlets and built up areas within the county road system. Any discussion on that? Seeing no hands up, all in favor of that amendment? Okay, and that amendment passes. So now back to the primary amendment, it now reads that the main motion be amended to insert a clause that staff be directed to follow up with council on a report to investigate options to implement physical traffic calming measures in hamlets and built up areas within the county road system on a trial basis. Okay, we're back to discussing now then, therefore, the whole main motion. Any further discussion there? Councillor Eccles.
Well, thank you, Madam Warden. Implement physical traffic calming measures. We have already implemented how many on a number of county roads over the years, especially on County Road 13 in the hamlet area of Kimberly. And obviously, none of them have worked yet, or we wouldn't be back here to where we are today, to the satisfaction of some individuals in that area. I've always struggled with this, as we had a report this morning showing the construction and how we've smoothed out the roads so that traffic can flow more effectively and efficiently. And then an hour or so later, we're debating on how to slow it all down. Well, we shouldn't have spent $3 million on the friggin' road. We should have just left the potholes there and people would have had to slow down. It does work. So maybe looking at staff, that might be one of the ways. But truly, the only way to slow the traffic down, and it's physical driver performance. You put up a traffic sign, the electronic one, and the guys and girls that are driving to excess, well,
No. Sorry. No, something is sensitive on my monitor.
thank you very much. That just gives me a bit of a break to refresh here and really get going now. I think that it is the physical presence of traffic control officers that are going to be implemented. If it becomes known that this area or other areas are speed traps and that enforcement is going to be there by the physical presence of a ticket, maybe it'll offset some of our court costs as well too. But the physical ticket is going to be has always been my thought of that's going to be the answer. Because the people that are driving past an 80 kilometer or 40 kilometers that are 20 or 30 kilometers over that, I'm just not certain how any physical thing is going to stop it. A lot of staff time is going to be expanded here. And I just have difficulty with it, without any backup that there's been any real problem, other than that offending a few people that think that cars are going past them fast in that area. Has there been considerable accidents and violence of traffic? I don't believe so. I can't support this. Thank you. Cut me off now.
Okay, thank you. We do need to keep in mind that our job is about the roads and about what we can do. Enforcement by police is not something that we as a body here, as a county council can influence. All of it, I believe all of us sit on police boards. That is a whole separate matter for a whole separate governance. Understanding that everybody's budgets are tight, everybody is stretched. We don't have the luxury of assigning police officers at every hamlet across Grey County in order to be able to preserve that. As effective as that may be, acknowledging that would be the most effective method, it isn't necessarily what we're able to do. So we do have to keep our focus and our discussion onto this. I will note that lunch is now overdue. So with that, I will look and see if there's any further discussion. Okay, so hearing no further discussion, seeing no further hands up, then we do have that main motion that has been amended. It does include reference to the letters, but it has now been amended as the primary and secondary motions. So I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, so with that then, oh, we haven't done that part. Okay, so thank you. That was, the clerk just reminded me, I'm one step ahead. We still now need to embody it into the main motion. So we now have the main motion. I better read it just to make sure we're all clear on what we're voting on here, that the correspondence from the municipality of Grey Highlands regarding traffic calming measures on Grey Road 13 be received for information, and that staff be directed to follow up with council on a report to investigate options to implement physical traffic calming measures in hamlets and built up areas within the county road system on a trial basis. Any further discussion now as it has now become the main motion? Okay, all those in favor? And that motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, we have one more item to entertain. It's item 6E. It's recommended that report FRCW 1326 regarding a 2026 capital project status update as of April 30th, 2026 be received for information. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Pringle. It's now on the floor for discussion. And so with that, Manager Reid, if you'd like to come back to the lectern and provide us any insight before we go into discussion. Thank you.
Through the warden, thank you. Similar to what I said for the operating report, a lot of work happens from January to April on the procurement side. So if we look at figure 1 in the chart, where projects are, whether they've been awarded, the procurement's in progress, or whether procurement isn't applicable. But the video that Trevor shared earlier in the meeting, those roads weren't paved as of April 30th, so a lot of them won't be marked as completed. A lot of that work happened in the summer, into the later months in the year. So where we're at as far as project completion and statuses, I think is pretty consistent with previous years. And then attached to the report is the detail of every single project and where they're at, and comments where applicable and what we've committed. And we also did prepare a budget book, which is linked in the report, or it can be accessed through our general Grey County open book site, where you can, it works more like an Excel sheet as opposed to a PDF, where you can actually filter for certain projects or departments and look up specific items. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And yes, I know it would be wonderful if finance could produce lovely videos to to make all these numbers come alive. But you have touched on the point that it's so important that this is really a cross-sector, cross-department item, and this allows us a picture is worth 1,000 words. So to be able to drive on a road or to be able to see it in the video today really really helps support the information that you've provided us in terms of the numbers and figures. So thank you for that. So with that, I will look to Councillor Gregg, who had pulled the item.
Well, apparently nobody likes a Scott that stands between them and lunch, so my 2 questions are brief. First question, there is in the attached table references to the waste management study that's being done. My first question there to staff is, are there plans to actually engage with municipal councils on that? It does speak to municipal staff, but just wondering about the level of engagement with councils. And second question is regarding 2 structures on County Road 40, which I believe was about $3.1 million budget, and it's almost $1 million in overage, including contingency. So just wondering if staff can comment on what obstacles have arisen from those projects, or any key takeaways that council needs to be aware of.
Okay, so we're going to start with the CAO.
Through you, Warden, I'll start with the waste management study, and maybe I'll turn to Garrett and Trevor to talk about the culverts on the structures on 40. With respect to the waste management study, there definitely will be consultation and sharing of information with all member municipal councils. We have been working with the waste management community practice and staff that are in each of the 9 member municipalities. The consultant has been doing site visits to the various landfill sites, transfer stations, and collecting of data and information. So the bulk of the work to date has been with staff engagement, but there will be definitely some overall community engagement as well as engagement with each of the member municipalities. We anticipate some of the early results will be maybe later this year, and then definitely into next year we'll be doing some of that consultation work.
Okay, so I see Manager Ireton is coming up.
Thank you, Warden. In regards to I guess there's capital structures. So one is actually on Grade 40 and the other is concession 2, which is in Chatsworth Township. Basically, the original budget figures were based on the consultant estimates that were put forward, I guess about the middle of the summer, so last year. And then based on the interpretation after the bids came in, there were basically 3 bids all around 3.1 to 3.3 million, pretty competitive. And then there was three other bids that were significantly higher. But initially, the variation in the bid prices compared to what they had determined in the estimates. A lot of it has come down to the temporary flow system that's used for bypassing the river through the structure during construction. The engineers originally assumed that the shoring that was used could be could be reused after the construction. So basically they pay for the steel, pile the sheet or put the sheet piles in and then pull them back out and reuse them on other projects. However, in talking to the different contractors, they determined that it wasn't. Basically the sheet piling would be sacrificial. So basically they put it in and then they can never use it again. So the costs of that were one of the factors that drove that price up. Also, the cost of the fabrication of the precast structures was higher than they expected, and that's largely to changes in the steel pricing since the time of the estimate compared to when the bids were placed. Hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, follow up or no? Okay. Any further questions then or comments? Okay. In that case, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, so with that, then we will move on to finish off the agenda. We do not have any closed meeting matters. Other business? Seeing no hands raised, we will go to notices of motion. Are there any notice of motion to serve today? Okay, seeing no hands, then we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Nielsen, seconded by Councillor Carlton. All those in favor? And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.